Good morning, BookTube. It's Friday morning. It's sure what time it is. Oh, it's just coming on sort of late morning. It's 10:45 here at the moment. And I'm not coming to you at the moment with the Friday reads. I will mention something that I started reading this morning because, in case I don't get back today with a Friday reads, I've been quite remiss of doing that. But on Wednesday, I started looking on Amazon just to see what was in print for science fiction writer James B. Hogan. He was a writer that I really liked. His Giants trilogy, which went into 5 books. I've voraciously read him probably up until the late 90s, maybe 2000, and then I sort of lost track of him after that. And I was surprised to find there's about 10 books that I had not read by him. And a few other shorter collections of nonfiction and whatnot. But I saw this on Amazon, Moonflower. It's 2008, and it was reduced. Like the original cover price was $16.99, and it was reduced on Amazon for £2.28 with free shipping with my Prime subscription. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. And it came late last night. I posted a photo on Instagram of it. And then I sort of got up this morning, picked it up, and started reading. And then I was 70 pages in. So I'll continue to read that today, and I might actually finish it. Today depends on how the day goes, or this afternoon and evening. The reason why I was coming today was because after I sort of read that, I was moving stuff again and sort of tidying up. And I found some Everyman Library material. I've mentioned, and I do want to do, it's going to have to be a series of this, so maybe this will be number 1, but there'll be a hiatus between doing any others for a while. I've got approximately 750 to 800 volumes of the original Everyman's Library. They vary in condition to poor, where the spines are coming off, to almost pristine, and some with many, I don't know, maybe 40 or 50 with jackets that are in pretty good shape. But today I found a few things. With that collection, I purchased a lot of, actually it was just sort of thrown in, catalogs, various catalogs that they put out for the Everyman. Here it is, here's a small one, select list of more than 500 classics in the Everyman Library. For those that aren't familiar with it, it started by J.M. Dent and Sons. It was conceived in 1905 and started publishing in 1906. And it went to 1953, I think it was, where they hit the 1,000th volume. The original editor was Ernest Rhys. He was an essayist, and he conceived the title Everyman's Library. It's a poem. Off the top of my head, I can't think of it at the moment. But yeah, these here, the first volume was, in 2 or 3, is Boswell's Life of Johnson, and the very last 1,000th volume is Aristotle's Metaphysics. And idea was to have a library of, if you had all these 1,000 books, that's all you really need. That was the idea. It's a complete library on history, the best fiction, the classics, the best children's writing, the best science, the best philosophy, the best lectures, essays, letters, I think I already mentioned, and they each had a different color for the different sections. And I was trying to find, because, as I say, where I have them now is sort of up near the ceiling, 8 feet to 9 feet, just sort of storage-wise, and I can't really access them at the moment. And I'm afraid there's 2 volumes that I have that are sort of guides to the Everyman that was put out by the Everyman Library, just sort of listing them in different various categories that you can go through, and by author looking up and where their books are. I was hoping to find that, but I don't know. I'm afraid it might have got mixed up with all the stuff that was put up there about a year, a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half. But what came with sort of the large part of the collection is sort of the catalogs and the stuff that was published by them. It was like a little leaflet folded up, the first 500 titles, and there's many of those that are 500. I think and then the first 700, and then in 1960, after it was all done, a classified and annotated catalog of the great books of the world. And somebody's written on there, September 1960. And this lists the complete list of all the books. And here's another one. It's later, I think, as well. I don't think they dated these. Yeah, but there's the other ones. They continued on, actually, after 1953, and up to, I think, 60s or 70s, they actually wound up doing 1,200 and almost 1,300 different titles. However, those later ones sort of bumped out some of the older ones for whatever reason. I think because of copyright, or they just decided to bring in new ones and keep the number as a whole as 1,000. But yeah, here's another catalog. That shows the library of all of them with jackets. Yeah, and they're all the later jackets. Because the interesting thing is they did change jacket design. They published the books. They printed the books and they kept them in a warehouse. So you could conceivably, in the 1950s, or even like lesser known titles, or the ones that didn't sell as much, still get a sort of 1920s or a teens printing of the book, but with a brand new dust jacket on it, the newer style dust jacket. And because it just didn't sell, they had copies of it. They printed up a lot of copies of each one, and some sold, some didn't. So some went into many printings, and others didn't, as you would expect. Excuse me. Here's another one. Everyman. This one is dated 1977. And then Random House, which the Penguin Random House, picked it up again. I'm not sure if it's in the late 70s or early 80s. No later than the 80s, that's for sure. Early 80s, and they are doing the newer versions of the Everyman Library. They're larger. They're no longer, in a sense, cheap. The Everyman Library, J.M. Dent, believed that books should be for the masses and affordable. So, and I think the originally started with $1 a book, which I would think, even with modern day translation of prices, conversion, that 18, 19 pounds for a normal modern day Everyman is not quite the same price as $1. Here's a random thing. It's a printer's error. The page has been transposed, and I think that is probably from an Everyman edition, and it just somehow it's got separated from the book and came into this collection. Somebody had photocopied an early photocopy of the first 700 volumes catalog, and you can see on the back they were studiously collecting them, and which ones they needed and which ones they wanted to upgrade. There's another different, see, it's stuck in with this, is the Wayfarer's Library, which is another series of books. Here's a list of 150 volumes. There we go. That might be the earliest one that I have. 150. So that'll be in the teens or at the latest, I think. 300, 300, list of 200, 300. Yeah, so there's a lot of them here. There's a whole handful, basically, of them. And they're just all the catalogs for that. And there are also... Oops, I'm just flying on the floor. Oh, there they are. In a prompt, I was asked if I collect bookmarks, and yes, I do, in the sense of they're stuck into books, and the ones I really like are old booksellers' bookmarks, and but I also collect the Everyman ones that are just they're more paper. There's a little stiffer paper, but we're stuck in. They're more advertisements. Like this here is Everyman's Encyclopedias, and signatures by Viscountess Snowdon, Sir Arthur Keith, J.B. Priestley, Joseph Stamp, and Chamberlain, praising it, and on the back, a few of them with the prices. And yeah, just now in Everyman Library, but these were bookmarks as well, and they show up in books occasionally, so I've taken them out. I'm sure I have more of these, but I don't know where they are. 9 new copyright volumes by modern writers. That'll be a later one, when they started getting modern writers, and because it was all classics and out of print material that they originally published. These are kind of nice. These are are collectible. There is a series of them that are with, and this is Milton. I've got 2 actually of Milton. And there's a whole series of these. I think there's about 9 or 10 that I actually did, and here's Carlyle. So I only have Carlyle and Milton, but two Miltons. Other ones, as you can see, some of them have been stuck in the book and sticking up. You see the brown at the top, probably from smoking or just aging. Yeah. And there's now in Everyman's Library. You got Aldous Huxley, Arnold Bennett. Yeah, those are the modern writers that they listed. And as I say, I should have more of these somewhere, but I don't know. Can't lay my hands on them now. They might be stuck in books that I have used them, but I try to keep them out. Another thing that was quite interesting at the time, that was put out in conjunction to this, was a magazine, and it was called Bookmarks, the Bookmark. There's issue 1, or volume 1, issue 1, and that's spring 1925. It was a magazine, about the publication of the Everyman Library. And it went for about a decade, I believe, or more. This one has articles about W.H. Hudson by Edward Garrett, International Music by Dr. Inglefield Hull, Francisco de Goya by R.A. Walker, Do We Buy Books by Alpha of the Plough, The Greatest of the Arts by Gordon Home, Everyman's Library by Ernest Reese, etc., etc. These are quite fragile, and there is foxing on them. The staples are rusting. I don't have them all. You see there's quite a bit of foxing there. This one is not too bad a shape, number 1, but the others, as I get sort of the newer ones, for some reason, the covers are coming off, and they are quite fragile. Every time I touch them, like even this one here, it's difficult. It flakes around the edges, so I need to get, because the covers are bigger than the text, so they're breaking off. The paper is just falling apart. And here's one, The Birth of a Book by J.M. Dent. Just wonderful little essays or articles. And I hope to bring some of those forward for the May magazines that Faith and Books is hosting. But yeah, and the strange thing is, I picked these up. I wasn't aware of them at the time, but I even now just did a search to see if anybody's put any up for sale. I can't find them anywhere on eBay. You do a search on Google. You do get the bookmarks, but you don't get the magazine. There are very few of them that are listed. There are a few pages that talk about the Everyman Library. There's a few very, very good websites that talk about the library. But yeah, these are all the ones that I do have. As I say, they're very fragile. As you can see, they're falling apart in places, and I do need to get some protective covers on those. Comic book bags, don't think they're wide enough. No, I just noticed on this one, one of my favorite essayists, Augustine Burrell, it's book buying. So I don't know. And I need to look. I wonder if these are original articles that have been written for this. And that would be very neat if they were, or they're culling and reprints. That's something that I haven't actually found out yet. So I just want to put those aside. And something else that was kind of neat that came with this is later there was Everyman paperbacks that they did in the 50s and 60s. And this here is a sort of mock-up of a cover of one of them. It's not exactly the same as the published book, because where it says here, famous plays by Webster and Ford, it has the famous plays across here. Famous plays by Webster and Ford across the top. This, if you look closely, it's got pencil writing in for colors. And all these colors match the final book, except there's also this Horrors for Burning, which is the title in here. It's not on this one, so I don't know if this was the very early mock-up. And also the Everyman Library goes all the way across. See, this is the spine, I believe, of the book, because it's got the anchor for Dent. But no, that was kind of a nice little thing to get. It's the original drawing. It's the first mock-up, I would assume, from the for the paperback. Get that out of the way. Something that is not specifically related to the Everyman Library. It uses its name, the Everyman. Started in 1912. I think it was 1912. Pardon me. It's just called the Everyman Magazine. It's like his life, work, and books. And this is I've got the complete set of it and bound copies. And it was edited by Charles Soroy Lee, I'm not sure of the pronunciation. He was a Belgian, then came over to England, wrote a lot, and he was editor for quite a while, for I think from about 1912 to the end of the First World War, and then there was a dispute between him and Dent, and he left. And the idea again here is that this is supposed to be for the masses. It was a penny. It's weekly. And this was Friday, October the 18th, 1912, is the very first edition of it, very first one. And again, it's just stories. There's all the way through the First World War. There's a lot of what's happening in the First World War, obviously. There's history. There's a little bit of fiction, essays, England and Germany by Sir John Brunner, War Against Poverty, Mrs. Sidney Webb. There was a book that I have on roadways and highways. Her and her husband were big, they were socialists, and they wrote a lot. And here's an article about Peeps. It's just it's on newsprint, so again they are quite fragile, and there is a lot of, if I can hold it up without destroying it, advertisements for various things, socks and so forth, and other booksellers as well. These, I've got a couple duplicates of items because, well, I just got everything that was available. Some of them are the interiors, the text, the magazine's parts are in good condition. They're solid. It's a lot of the boards that have water damage and had mold on it. The mold is all gone, but it's made its damage on the boards themselves and on a few of the ends of the spines. But as I say, the interiors are good. The idea is that possibly to have them rebound, if I ever went that way, that I have a couple duplicates that I can cull from and create if there was any damage interior wise. There's an interesting other little thing here. There's a portfolio of Everyman portraits that are from the magazine. So there's it's going to be difficult, isn't it? They won't separate properly. So yeah, so they're just just typical black and white portraits. And I mentioned the editor's name as Charles Soroy. He was born in 1870 in Belgium. He died in 1953 in Scotland. And he wrote other books as well. But I have something that is quite interesting. I have his copy of Les Miserables. It's been rebound in quarter leather, green leather. It's the second English edition, Hurst and Blackett, 1862. You see the name up at the top is Charles Soroy. So this was his copy of Les Miserables, the second English printing. It's not the first English translation. There was one a few months before in the United States, which the Everyman Library actually put out. That's their version of it. But yeah, this is not the perfect, but I've seen better tooling on it but it's nicely done, and it's nicely the edges are marbled as well, darkened on the top obviously. But yeah, so that's a little glimpse into sort of the periphery and ephemera of the Everyman Library I have. You could spend a lifetime collecting this material. I just sort of been lucky that somebody else spent the lifetime doing it, and I have reaped the benefits of it by being in the right place at the right time to get the collection, which would have been probably dispersed. And I believe I have everything, except possibly there was, I mentioned it before, Richard Burton's wife had a complete set of made up for him with faux, not faux, but soft leather with the colorings. of the same colorings of everything. Suede, that's what I was thinking of, suede. And I did see, and I had the chance to buy the complete works of Shakespeare that were done, and it was from Richard Burton's library. Couldn't afford it, not at that time. Didn't go for a more enormous price, but it would have been a nice prize to have. But so I can't have everything, as Stephen Wright said. Where would you put it? Anyway, I might be back later today, BookTube, with a Friday Reads, but I may not. Have a good weekend.